I'm here with Andrew Brons in Brussels. The main chamber is a few yards down that way behind us. This is the area where all the stand-up interviews are carried out. So again, it's a little bit of an experiment with informing viewers back at home about the things that we do here and some of the key issues that are coming up. Now, something that we've both found, increasingly in fact, is that everyone else is expected to vote on amendments to various motions, which is fair enough. But when you're given literally hundreds of amendments a few hours before the actual vote, and then even then they're changed even later than that, it makes it very, very difficult to function effectively. Andrew and I have discussed what we're going to do about this. In particular, Andrew, first of all, perhaps a little bit about really what problems does this cause us?
Well, I can give you a good example of it. This morning in AFCO we had votes on the Citizens' Initiative. Not just one or two votes, we're talking about 100 or more votes on various amendments, quite complex ones. Well, yesterday afternoon we had what was then the latest voting list. I handed that over to one of my assistants who worked the whole afternoon on it. Then at 6:40 last night we heard that list had been superseded. So we had to spend yesterday evening, both before going for dinner and after going to dinner, we were still working on it at 1:45 in the morning, doing the new list. We got in this morning fairly confident that we covered all the different options and we had an answer to all of it, only to find out that had been superseded by yet another one, which obviously it was too late. I was actually sitting in the chamber ready to vote. So I had to ignore the latest one and work from the list that was out of date. Now, as I've often said, we are not inclined to like EU law or the principle that they can legislate for us. But if there's one thing that's worse than clear EU law, it's ambiguous and unclear EU law. And that's what we're getting. Even if I were a Europhile, I'd feel terribly angry about this because it means impaired lawmaking, which means bad law in the end.
Obviously I get the same thing in the Environmental Committee as well. Yes. We were working on, again, a late slew of amendments until, 9:30, 10 o'clock last night, and then it still changed this morning as well. And initially I was thinking about it is how it affects us, and particularly when you haven't got a big party bloc. It means that you're desperately struggling to keep up with it.
Yes.
I thought about it more since then, and in fact it's a mechanism also for controlling all MEPs.
Yes.
Because if you're an MEP in the biggest bloc of all you can do, or you see them do it, they simply follow what they're told to by...
Right.
They're whipped. There's a whip system here, but no one even knows it.
Yes. But in fact you see them doing it, because the party leaders, even in the committees, will make a sign, this or that, indicating... I referred to them last week in the plenary session as the party tic-tac men, because they look very much like the bookies who are signalling to their clients.
So you carry in your hand a piece of paper. What is it?
Well, this is a letter that we're sending to somebody who is supposedly the representative of the non-attached, a representative who hasn't actually been delegated by us, but complaining about this very issue and saying that if we're going to improve the legislative process here, we really must get rid of this system whereby amendments are foisted on us at the last possible moment.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how Mrs. Dodds will take this, because of course, as you know, she's our representative, supposedly, but at the start of the parliamentary session she moved away and sat next to people who actually sympathised with Sinn Féin, although she's an Ulster Unionist, rather than sit next to you.
Exactly.
So I don't think we'll get much joy from her, but we will see.
Yes.
I guess our letter will spoil her Christmas.
Yes. I think we've always got to take the approach of turning the other cheek when it comes to people who act in an unchristian way.
Of course we must, of course we must. Now, Christian things and Christmas is coming, so good King Wenceslas should be trudging through the snow. Did you have to trudge through snow to get here?
No, but only because we were running ahead of the snow. The snow was following close on our heels, but we managed to elude it. But my son-in-law, up in a village where I live near Harrogate, took 3.5 hours to travel 6 miles across from one end of the town, one side of the town to the other. Really unprecedented snow. I believe we blame it on global warming.
Absolutely so. I was sent earlier on a piece I'm working on just now, actually, for an article for our website, a story from The Independent in 2000, a prediction by the climate change people at the University of East Anglia that children were going to grow up not knowing what snow was.
Yes.
Now today I was coming out of the Environmental Committee and a group of the key global warmists were stood there, and one of them being Spanish, they're all socialists, but one of them being Spanish couldn't restrain her excitement about the fact it was snowing in Palma. And the Germans were just going, oh no, no, because yesterday they were talking about proposals at very early stages at present to impose even tighter restrictions on heavy goods vehicles in terms of emissions and so on. And speaker after speaker, particularly Chris Davis, who's a global warming fanatic, the Lib Dem MP in the northwest, and an owner of quite a lot of shares in wind farms, he was there saying, well, this is obviously about carbon emissions, but we need to start selling it, and he was using this term selling it, by talking about fuel efficiency and so on. And this was running through the whole thread of the Envy Committee. Everything they're doing is actually about global warming and carbon emissions. But they're having to change how they're selling it.
That's right. It's an unfortunate debate in which they start with the conclusion, then they look for the evidence. And I'm afraid the evidence is becoming increasingly difficult to find.
Well, they are preparing a second line of defence to this. They're now very seriously starting to say that, of course, it's not actually global warming, it's climate change, and that the cold weather is one of the consequences of climate change and global warming.
Yes.
Fantastic stuff.
Yes, I used to do that when I was at school. If I used to crib the answer in a maths homework, sometimes I used to have to change the working out so that it would suit. And I think that's roughly what they're doing.
That's what they're doing, but they're aware that it's illogical. They're aware that it's spinning and it's scam. And as far as I'm concerned, certainly in my committee, I'm a tiny minority, and in the chamber together, we're in a small minority of sceptics, realists about climate. But out there in the real world, everybody's on our side, aren't they?
Yes, it's which only emphasises it's all about centralisation and control rather than about science.
So my committee has been a fair bit, as usual, about hot air and emissions. What have you been doing in, was it Constitutional Affairs?
Well, in the Constitutional Affairs Committee, this has been about the Citizens' Initiative. As I say, we had to
this is
legislate.
On Citizens'
Initiative?
Well,
it's sometimes described as a referendum. Sometimes it's described as a petition. It's not really a referendum because it only involves collecting signatures, which makes it more like a petition. And even if they get the required million signatures, then the Commission can refuse to do anything about it. But the other really sinister thing about it is that right at the beginning of the process, not only can they reject it at the end of the process, but at the beginning of the process, they can reject it on the ground that it's devoid of seriousness, whatever that might mean, or contrary to European Union values. Now, I've pointed this out, that it's all very well for a debate to hope at the end of it to arrive at a consensus, but a debate that prescribes a consensus beforehand isn't a real debate. It's the debate that the Supreme Soviet used to have.
Yeah, sure. On the question of totalitarians, there's a different way of looking at it, is that there's two sorts of plebiscites, really. There's the Hitler sort, where the government knows they're going to win and they ask the question, and there's the Swiss Citizens' Initiative referenda model, whereby the people say the question they're going to ask, and then the politicians have to obey the results. And there's a huge difference, and it sounds like what they want here is going to be more on the Hitler model than the Swiss model, don't they?
Well, I think it's something that's designed to appear like the Swiss model, but it isn't, in fact. Because what it will do, as I say, what they can propose is prescribed to begin with, so it isn't a free initiative. It's the citizens are being allowed to use their initiative to do what they're allowed to do, and nothing more. But even at the end of the process, even if people were to get their million signatures, the Commission can say, very interesting, no thank you, and do nothing about it.
It's a great shame because the Swiss model really is working well. And it's been back in the news this week, actually.
That's right, of course.
Whereas recently they came up with a ban on minarets. And so this week another one. What is it this week?
On immigration.
Of course, that's it.
And particularly removing those who are not citizens who've committed serious criminal offences.
It's the expulsion of criminal immigrants, basically. And it's what everyone, I think, in every country in Europe wants, except the political elite. But only the Swiss have got the mechanism whereby they can force this thing on their political elite.
Which is what we really need. But what we're having instead is something that only appears to be a referendum. It isn't really.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, well, that's good stuff. We can see the political elite up to the usual tricks.
I think we can.
And us doing what we can to,
Yes.
to thwart them.
Yes.
So one final thing on the political elite and us. Both Andrew and myself have pledged to give our pay rise of, I think it's a backdated pay rise on a basis of about £3,000 a year, providing 10 other MEPs in Britain from any other party or group of parties combined with us, then we will give that to pensioners' charities in our constituency, literally to help pensioners survive this cold weather. I've had no response yet from any MEP. Have you?
No.
So we await it. I would say fairly confident,
Yes.
gloomily, in the fact that they will not do what they should do.
I think they'll respond as
decently.
quickly as they responded to your challenge over Haiti, which was
Yes,
not at all.
Yes, indeed. In Haiti, I offered to give a day's wages to the Haitian relief charity if any other British MEP other than you would do the same thing. Not one did it.
No.
So I kept the money and they kept the money, but I was willing to give it. In this case, I very much hope that they will do it, but I doubt it. But challenge to any MEP watching this, come on, do the decent thing. That money is an obscenity when ordinary people are being told to, cut back, take pay cuts, are facing unemployment, cuts in all their essential services. For the people here to take a pay rise of 3.7%, to be looking at a backdated pay rise of some £3,500–4,000 a year, it's absolutely disgraceful. Join us, give it to keep old age pensioners alive in your constituency. And to the viewers, how about this? Write to your MEPs. Get on the parliamentary website, click on the British map, find out who your local MEPs are, and write to each and every single one of them, reminding them of what Andrew and I are offering them, and asking them if they'll do the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you.